The Trump search warrant Mar-a-Lago saga continues, and the judge now is unsealing some additional documents. We're going to take a very close look at two of them today. One, of course, is an investigation sort of report. It's an update that the government prosecutors submitted into the court. So we will go through that in detail. We're also going to take a look at this new property list. Remember, when Judge Reinhardt issued or approved the search warrant, the U.S. government came back and they were supposed to provide everybody with this inventory list of all the things that they seized. Well, we got it. And it was like box A27, box A35. And so you're sitting here going, this is kind of ridiculous. If we're Donald Trump and his defense team, how are we supposed to know anything that the U.S. government took? How can we properly prepare our defense if we don't even know what they stole out of our house? And so the judge sort of agreed with their arguments and said, all right, we're going to publish a little bit more there, and that we're going to take a look at that property list. And then, of course, we're going to take a look at this filing. It's by a third-party, independent, very distressed citizen, and he's very angry about Trump and his defense lawyers using the word president. And so he wrote this little nastygram to the judge, and he says, Judge, I hope you don't let this stand. I think this was an offensive filing. And he was sitting at home watching Netflix or something, and the whole thing just came across his desk. And so he was compelled to write a letter into the judge. But all of this is coming on the back of oral arguments that took place on September 1st. This was the big oral arguments, and we spent a lot of time here on this channel dissecting both sides of this. Remember, Donald Trump came out after the search warrant was authorized and executed against him. He filed a complaint. He said, Your Honor, with a separate judge, he said, Judge, we need somebody to monitor all of this. I can't possibly trust the DOJ. That would be ridiculous. And then the government responded and said, we don't want a third party to come monitor any of this. We're the DOJ. We're trustworthy as hell. You can just trust us with your daughter if you'd like. And Trump said, no, we're not going to do that. So all of this back and forth culminated in one set of oral arguments that took place on the 1st, but we didn't get the official minute entry until the 2nd. Because the clerk, probably was at lunch or something. So she comes back, and then on September 2nd, we get this minute entry update. It says here, all right, America, the proceeding was held before Judge Eileen Cannon, motions hearing on September 1st. The court heard argument from the parties on Trump's motion for judicial oversight and the additional relief, right? They wanted the special master appointed, and then they wanted the property returned. They wanted them to stop going through the property. They wanted, there was a fourth thing, a whole kind of slew of things. Those were the additional remedies. So what we get here is not much. They say oral argument was heard, and here's a couple orders, very, very short sort of snippets. Investigative team status report, which is the filing number 39, right? That's the entry. And the detailed property inventory, that's entry 39.1, to be ordered unsealed, right? The order to follow. That's all we got. No more details. Total time in court, 105 minutes, sort of like a short movie. Attorneys who were there, Lindsay Halligan, James Trusty, Evan Corcoran, Michael Kesey, for the defense. And then we have 4 people for the government, Jay Bratt, Juan Antonio Gonzalez, Julie Edelstein, and Sophia Brill. Shout out to our court reporter, Diane Miller. We love our court reporters here. So that got entered on 9/2/2022, and that was sort of the big news of the day. No ruling. We're all sitting here on pins and needles. Judge, are you going to appoint a special master? Like, yes or no? That's what we got. There was no final ruling after all of that. Apparently in court, the judge communicated to us and said that she was going to issue a written order. And so she's mulling this over. She's going to be thinking about it all weekend, probably pacing up and down the hallway. What should I do? What should I do? What should I do? And then finally we'll get a written order from her that gives us all the details, and we will, of course, detail that, parse through that. Thank you for subscribing and joining us. But now let's take a look at the documents that were, in fact, unsealed. This is the filing. Donald Trump versus United States. This was filed by the prosecutors, filed under seal and ex parte, right? This means that nobody can see it. It's not on the public docket. And it's also ex parte. This means that they're just submitting this to the court and they're not giving a separate copy to the Trump team or anybody else, right? It's you're communicating one side with the court. And that's kind of like, you kind of want to avoid that. If you have an opposing party, you sort of want to give the other side notice. That's due process. How is it fair if a whole sequence of events is happening and you are not even apprised of it, right? They want to try to give you notice, but because this is the Biden DOJ and this is also something that implicates national security implications, and around we go. You wouldn't want, Judge, us to implicate national security. And if we tell you this, there could be security implications for the nation. You go, wow, that's really great language there. So they continue on. They tell us, notice by the investigative team of the status of the review, right? They're rummaging through all Melania's underwear, and the judge is saying, I better get an update from you people. What do you have for us? Government prosecutors write the following. In its order from August 27th, the court, here, you judge, ordered us prosecutors to provide the following, quote, a particularized notice indicating the status of the government's review of the seized property. Particularized. So give me some details on what's happening. This submission, Judge, represents that team's notice. You give us an order, here it is. It also says a separate notice will be filed by the filter team. All right, so we've got two teams. This team, the investigative team, and the filter team. Footnote 1, the prosecutors tell us, Judge, your preliminary order indicated that this notice should be filed under seal. In an abundance of caution, the government is also filing this notice under seal and ex parte, meaning Trump's people are not getting it, since it contains the type of information that in the normal course would not be shared with the owner of a premises that was searched pursuant to a court-authorized search warrant. So, Judge, you said file it under seal. Ordinarily, our policy is also not to file it ex parte, to not notify the opposing counsel, the defendant. And so we're not going to do that here. They're just letting you know, right? That's why they did that. Policy. Okay. Prosecutors say, Judge, as of the date of this filing, got an update for you. The investigative team has completed its preliminary review of the materials seized. These were seized pursuant to the search warrant on August 8th. With the exception of any potentially authorized attorney-client privilege materials that pursuant to the filter team have not been provided to the investigative team. So everything is completed except any attorney-client materials that the filter team gathered or separated has not been provided to the investigative team, right? Which you may not want to do because they should be filtered out because those might have attorney-client privileged materials. So they're saying we've got it, like everything that we were allowed to see, we've reviewed. Everything that we weren't allowed to see, we haven't reviewed. It's still with the filter team. They'll provide their update and their notice separately. Prosecutors write, they say, the documents bearing classification markings that were seized during the execution of the warrant have been segregated from the remainder of the seized materials and are being adequately stored separately with the appropriate procedures governing classified material. And so our team, the investigative team, has reviewed the seized materials in furtherance of its investigation, evaluating the relevance and the character of each item and making preliminary determinations about the avenues and the investigative avenues suggested or warranted by the character and the nature of the seized items. The seized materials will continue to be used to further the government's investigation, and the investigative team will continue to use and evaluate the seized materials as it takes further steps, like additional interviews with witnesses and grand jury practice. They say, Judge, additionally, all evidence pertaining to the seized items, including but not limited to the nature and the manner in which they were stored, as well. So in other words, right, they're going to have the files, but they also want to know where the files were. Is it, is somebody putting their coffee mug on top of it with coaster rings all over the place? Also the manner in which they were stored. Right? That's why we have to keep a lot of this evidence. It said it's going to inform the government's investigation. They say, thus, it is important to note, Judge, quote, review of the seized materials is not an investigative step, but it's an ongoing process in this criminal investigation. Okay, so it's not like, Judge, they're saying, Judge, we're not going to be like done with this, all right, and then like give you the boxes. Like that's ridiculous, okay? We're going to be done and hold on to it. We're going to continually review it. We might have to go refresh ourselves and whatever. They say that said, Judge, okay, even though it's going to be ongoing and we're not going to ever be done with this, they said the government can confirm for the court that the investigative team has already examined every seized item other than materials that are filtered out, even as the investigation continues further review. The team has been and will be continually mindful of the potential attorney-client privilege issues and the filter protocols contained in the search warrant. Does that make you feel good? Nice and warm and fuzzy inside? The DOJ, they're telling the court they're going to be continually mindful of attorney-client privilege. Whoa! Well, I feel better already. In fact, we might as well just wrap it up right here. This all feels legitimate now. Thanks for that reassurance. Additionally, as the government has separately explained in its notice of receipt, the DOJ and the ODNI, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, are facilitating a classification review of materials pursuant to the warrant, and the ODNI is leading an intelligence community assessment, also known as a damage assessment, to assess the potential national security risk that would result if the disclosure of the seized materials had occurred. If some janitor had walked out of Trump's office with the nuclear codes, could he have ended the world? Would he have been in charge suddenly? Or do you only need the podium for that? As directed by the court's order, the government has attached a more detailed property receipt attached as Exhibit A here too, signed by Juan Antonio Gonzalez and Jay Bratt over at the U.S. DOJ. That is their update. They're telling the court, here's the status. We've looked at everything except the things we shouldn't have looked at. Those are still being reviewed by the filter team and judge. They'll notify you about all that separately. So they also did release a detailed inventory. Government prosecutors dropping Exhibit A. This is the more detailed property list inventory, also filed under seal so that nobody publicly can see it. Also filed ex parte so that without the judge's orders, Trump's team can't see it either. Donald Trump versus United States of America. And we are getting a little bit more granular on this. You know, what we sort of use a lot on this channel as an analogy is the map, right? You have on your phone the map application. You can kind of pinch in, pitch out, zoom in, zoom out. Go way out and see the state, zoom in, see the city, and zoom in and see your street. Same thing here. They gave us a highly zoomed out version of what they took. And now we're asking, can we see a little bit more detail? Can we zoom in on this thing and see what you've got? And they gave us just a smidge more. Let's see what we have here. They tell us, item number 1, documents from the office. All right, well, what do we have here? 1 U.S. government document with secret classification markings, and 2 U.S. government documents and photographs without classification markings. Oh, so these are actually, this is a total of 3 items. Okay. Item number 2, 99 magazines. All right, magazines, newspapers. We've got 2 documents with confidential, 15 top secret, 15 secret, 7 top secret, and 69 also with classification markings. Okay, so you see all of these markings. We really don't know what the classification is or what the status is of each one of those documents, but we do know that they've got markings on them. 43 empty folders with classified banners, same issue there, and 28 empty folders with return to staff or the military aid. Item number 3, we've got 2 U.S. government documents and photographs without classified markings. Do we have passports in here? We'll see, right? We really don't know what those are. Item number 4, just general documents. Also 26 magazines, newspaper articles, which are probably also pretty dangerous. We also have confidential classification markings, secret markings, and 357 without classification markings. Oh, that's interesting. Right, and so you take a look at this, and now theoretically, let's say, for example, if we sort of, speculate here and insert some additional variables or facts. Item number 4, what if it's a box? Okay, this is a box. Item number 4, we walked out with box 4. And the box, as we know, right, they were literally dumping out entire desk drawers. They would just grab the drawer. They'd say, oh, classified in there. And so they just rip the drawer out and just dump the whole thing in the box. Everything in there, all your highlighters and staplers and your Scotch tape, whatever. It all just gets dumped in there. And here they've got 357 photographs with, it looks like, just sort of, in other words, without classification markings. So you've got 357 items plus 26 items plus 2. So 357 plus 26 are okay. No problems there. Even if you presume the worst, like even if you said, okay, any classified or confidential or any document is very dangerous DNI information, you take a look at it, right? In context, we've got 2 documents out of 357 plus 26 that are not problematic. So it's a very small percentage in terms of a piece of the pie, even if you presume that they were problematic. Now, if you take Trump at his word and you give him the benefit of the doubt, if you say, hey, this is America and we still believe in the presumption of innocence, we're going to give people the benefit of the doubt until they're found guilty. you would say this individual, we would presume he says he's declassified them. He had the power to do it. He had the motive, the means, and the opportunity to declassify them. So let's say you did give him the benefit of the doubt and you said that maybe they all were declassified. Then the rest of this is essentially moot. But if you do the opposite of that and you hold it against him, it's still a tiny, small percentage in that one box. Item number 5, 396 documents without markings, 640 documents without classification markings, 1 without classification markings. We've got 68 magazine articles, 1 article of clothing, gifts, 1 book, and 2 S documents without classification markings. Item number 9, more magazines. This one coming from 2019 to 2020. Another 65 documents without classification markings. Item 10. Here we get a couple more, 11 with confidential, 21 with secret, but then 255 in there without. Okay, again, a very tiny sliver of these documents. Similar pattern exists, right? This goes on and on and on. Let's see if we can tease anything out. We have a small handful, looks like 11 documents here with, out of, it looks like 220 without. So 220 versus 11 in those totals. Problematic versus not. Here, another box without classification markings, U.S. government documents and photographs. Similar thing here, 708 documents without classification markings. So honestly, you know what it looks like? It looks like they took all of the documents out, every single thing that was top secret, because look, let's say, for example, this is a box or a container, right? Item 13, box container from storage room. The photograph that they dumped out on the ground, it didn't look like this. It looks like they went to every single box and they said, I better pull this box. We're going to pull this one out. We're going to pull this one out. We're going to take those 2 out. We're going to come down to item 14. Let's take out the confidential, the big red scary documents. Let's pull those out of item 14. Let's see, item 15. Does that have any good stuff in there? They're like trick-or-treaters going around Mar-a-Lago. They're like, oh, what's in this box? What do we have in here? Item 15. Oh, those magazines, nobody wants those. Oh, how about, oh, yes, perfect. 1 confidential, perfect. 4 secret, perfect. Oh, but there's 78 documents without the classification. Okay, nobody cares about that. Okay, so you get those. Special Agent John, you get those. Special Agent, okay, forget this box. Item 16 is terrible. There's only, it looks like 76 magazines. There's nothing good in there. It's like a bunch of candy corn or something in this trick-or-treater. What did he give us? Apples in this box? What did you get? Oh, I got item 17. Oh, what did you get? Oh, I got nothing, man. I got clothing. I got magazines, articles, and I got 2 documents without markings. Oh, bummer, man. Bummer. How about you? What'd you get? This guy got 1 document with secret classification markings. And remember this, right? That's 1 document. This is so disgusting what they did here. Their warrant gives them the ability to now expand the scope. So we talked about this, right? If they open up Trump's desk and there's 1 classified document in there, what does that give them access to under permission of the affidavit and the search warrant that was approved by the judge? They get access to the whole thing, the entirety of anything. So here, what did they get? They found that 1 secret classified marking. So they get a book, and they also take with them 1,571 documents without classification markings, okay? But because of that 1 secret classification marking, it spoiled the whole batch. So they take everything. They get to walk out with everything because they found 1, or they put 1 in there. That's all they need. Just slip 1 right in there. 1 document, and they walk away with 1,500 documents without classification markings. 4 magazine articles. So this guy hit the freaking jackpot. This trick-or-treater, I don't know what he was wearing, or he may have been in Melania's clothes, but he got the jackpot, baby. He got that rich neighbor house. He's like giving full candy bars away. He got the 1 document, and it turned over 1,500 additional pieces of candy. Woo, baby. Should go to Vegas. Same thing here. This guy also did pretty well. He got 1 document with confidential markings. He also got five gift items, don't know what those are, 53 magazines, and 236 without classification markings. Woo! So he's doing pretty well. Yeah, so, okay, things are looking up. It wasn't looking so good for them. Yeah, this guy, yeah, box 20, he lost. Bad night for him. Magazines and without markings. Also lost 1,400 without classification markings and magazines. I was like, why do they even get these boxes? Here, similarly, 109, 29 without classification markings. Oh, do you know? I know why they got those boxes, because they were adjacent to the other boxes. Remember, the search warrant gave them the ability to do that. So it's not only that you get the jackpot. I should have expanded that. This trick-or-treater, if he got box 18, he can get the boxes next to him, and the boxes sort of touching those other boxes, because it was also in the storage room and it was adjacent to the original boxes that they found. So, man, they're cleaning up over here. Let's see what this government trick-or-treater FBI agent got. Yeah, this one's not bad. One government document with secret markings, and that gave him automatic access to 67 magazine articles, one book, 70 documents without markings, and 8 empty folders. Not a bad haul for him. This guy got, but that box was next to probably 24, and so he also walked away with 1,600 documents without classification markings, right? So when you see all these high numbers of people, oh God, there were 11,000 documents in there. Look at these giant batches, 1,600 of them without markings. And so as you can see, what they did is they went through and they just took the worst documents out of every box and they dumped them all on the floor, right? They took item 25, they took this one, this one government document with confidential, this one document, and they threw them on the ground. They went to item 26, a separate box, and they found 3 documents, and they ripped those out and they threw those on the ground. Item 27, oh, well, they didn't find anything in item 27. They only had 52 documents without markings in there. Item 28 was a good box. They got, it looks like 14 documents that they threw on the ground there. And they left out the 795 documents, because if they would have dumped this box out, right, one box, then you can see that you would have had 795 documents. But we didn't see that. We just saw only the selected documents that they wanted to splay out for you. Same thing here, item 29. One document came out of that box right on the ground. Item 30, 82 documents without markings and 29 magazines. We're almost done here because this is the end. But here, 3 more boxes, 111 magazine articles, 41 without classification markings, 94 magazines, 1 book, 88 without classification markings in box 32. And then lastly, item 33, 83 magazines, 1 book, 44 without classification, 2 empty folders with classified banners, and 2 empty folders with return to staff. So there you go. Right in the photograph that we saw, that little manipulation that they tried to create, to concoct for us, is about as fraudulent as it gets. It's not like they just took a picture of a box. They went out and they extracted every single one of those separate items that was problematic, and they put them on the ground in a way that made it look as bad as possible with big red scary fonts, so that you think that this is how Trump was operating and leaving all of this stuff. Turns out not true at all. There was another complaint that came out. A gentleman is very angry about Donald Trump and his defense lawyers using the word president in their filings. And he submitted this very distressed complaint to the judge. He filed this on September 2nd. It's 4 pages. It's pretty hysterical, so we'll read it. It comes out from this gentleman. His name is O'Rain. I don't know anything about O'Rain. Seems like a nice guy, or not. But he filed this on the public court docket today. And he said this in the case of Trump versus the United States government. He says, "Dear Judge, while I was at home perusing Yahoo News, the front page on my computer, I saw an item that announced the attached was filed." And he's referencing Donald Trump's motion. You see this here. Donald Trump filed a motion, which we read through in detail. He said, Trump was filing, he was saying, "Judge, we're making arguments that we should have a special master appointed, and we read through that in detail yesterday. So this guy, O'Rain, he's sitting at home. He says, Judge, I saw this come across when it was filed. I began reading it and was immediately offended and repulsed by the statement of the very first line at the end, which falsely states President. This guy says, I find this extremely offensive as a citizen of the United States, as a U.S. Air Force Vietnam vet. And just so you know, he says, this offensive verbiage was highlighted. It is my fervent hope that your response, in whatever form it takes, repudiates the claim, saying that Trump is being improperly identified as president. And he says to the judge, he says, if you allow this to go unchallenged, you're giving aid and comfort to undermine the democracy. Do you see this crap? This is where this is going. If you allow that, you're undermining democracy, the good order, the discipline, and the freedoms which have been the hallmark of America. He probably just got done listening to Joe Biden's speech, and he was really excited about this. He says, please, I beseech you not to let that arrogant falsity go unchallenged, because it is corrosive to our freedoms, our society, and the government. See what happened on January 6th, Judge? He says further, the attorneys who submitted the filing should be sanctioned, for they should know better. Respectfully, O'Rain, a distressed U.S. citizen. Well, I hope he's okay over there. Take it easy, O'Rain. It's going to be okay. He says, also, in the interest of appearance, I suggest that you recuse yourself. All right. So very upset at Donald Trump, very upset at the judge. And so I guess, doesn't want President Trump to be called President Trump. So I just thought that was hysterical. So, this case is bringing out everybody, all sorts of interesting people out of the woodwork. And he filed that complaint on the public docket. And I'm sure there's going to be much more of that. And we'll continue to cover it. I hope you join us on that journey. And please don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss anything, because we've got a lot to get to.